Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of By Accident or Design, a small snackable LinkedIn series about marketing, sales, business, all about from mistakes, wow moments, and everything in between. And today I have an amazing guest with me. It's Cinneah El-Amin, and she is the founder of Flynanced. And we're going to get into that. But not only is she an entrepreneur, but she's also somebody who is groundbreaking. She has built an entire community teaching women how to be 9 to 5 hotties, building wealth, claiming the lifestyle that they want now without shame, because you know how women, we have to apologize. She is saying, do not apologize, go after it. And not only that, but she comes with over 5 years of experience as a product manager in financial services, owning development, launch, and customer facing products, working with big name brands like American Express, MasterCard, and PayPal. So she knows about money. Okay. So thank you so much, Cinneah, for being with us today. Um, Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me, Victoria. I'm excited for this conversation.
Okay, all right. So first things first, even before we jump into the questions, I want to just, I've personally been following you on LinkedIn for a while, just secretly, and I want to say I really love the authenticity. I love the community and the conversations in the comments with some of the things that you have sharing, and I can see that you've really built a strong community. You know, you are someone with influence. You are a thought leader
Yeah,
in a way. So I really appreciate that.
thank you. Thank you so much for saying that.
Okay, so let's jump into the questions. What are some ways someone can use the skills they already have or a natural talent to make money doing something you love? So we live in a world where one, your job is not secure. There's a lot of apparently we're going through a recession. A lot of tech companies are letting people go in different areas, not just software engineers. We live in an era where you're not married to your job and you have to monetize or be your own brand ambassador, your own influencer in a way. So what are some ways that people can use that talent and monetize it in a way that doesn't feel extremely soul sucking? I should add that too.
Yes, that's a great question. I think right now there are really two main lanes that I see folks can repurpose their skills and pivot into making more money. I think one, if you work a traditional 9 to 5, there's no better time than now to really crystallize what those skills are and align them with job titles that you may not even know exist, right? So a great example I love to give is the woman who's an administrative assistant who has all of these years of experience managing projects and just kind of being that central hub for a lot of different stakeholders, doesn't realize that she has the same skills as a operations manager or a program manager, that and those job titles could be paying her a lot more for her expertise and experience without her having to upskill. So I think that's one lane, is really just crystallizing what are those well-paid transferable skills that you have and starting to align them with the job titles that you may not even know exist. And they can exist across tech and other well paid industries. I think, on the other hand, if you are considering a side hustle or starting your own business or becoming an entrepreneur, the reality is we all got to have a hustle. You kind of alluded to that already, Victoria. I think it really starts with thinking about what are those skills that people more always come to you for, right? So when I think about my experience starting Flynanced, I never set out to be an entrepreneur. I never set out to do any of the things that I'm doing now. It really just kind of started from a place of I felt like people were coming to me consistently asking me the same question, right? How do you afford to travel as much as you do? Or what are some of the travel hacks you're using? Or how are you paying off all this debt? Those questions kind of became conversation starters for myself in terms of, okay, what are the things that are in my zone of genius that maybe I'm taking for granted that other people don't know that I can share with other people? I think that's where it starts, right? So maybe it's not starting with saying, I'm going to be, a multi-million dollar entrepreneur in the next 12 months. Maybe
Right.
it's saying, hey, I know that friends are always coming to me for, I don't know, wardrobe styling advice or whatever that skill is for you. And starting there, starting with the people in your network, right? Let those people be your brand evangelists, right? Maybe initially you aren't charging people for your services, but you're building up a portfolio of people
Mhm.
who can say by word of mouth, yeah, Victoria's doing an amazing job at this. Maybe they can give you testimonials that can start to help you build up that momentum to be able to show other people that you can charge for the services that you want to provide.
And
So
confidence too.
yeah, exactly. So I think sometimes we kind of put the horse before the cart. So I think sometimes it's so important to, especially if you're going to use your skills to make more money outside of a 9 to 5, really starting to think about, back to that idea about community. Who are those people that can really, you know, be those evangelists for you, that can really speak to your skills, that aren't afraid to, give you a testimonial, that may be willing to, use your services for free or low cost as you kind of build up that initial customer base, and then kind of springboard it from there. So that would be my advice.
That's very true. And two interesting facts. One is that there was a study, I remember it was through LinkedIn, and they were saying that women usually, when they're applying for jobs, they go through the responsibilities and the roles, and if they don't check off everything, they usually don't apply for a job. Whereas a man will just check off like three, two things, everything is like, I'll learn along the way, and they'll just go in.
Yep.
And so I feel like more women, when it comes to like figuring out how, what's their thing to make money, is that they shouldn't, like you said, the horse before the cart, shouldn't try and tick off everything to the get-go. It's a process. It takes time, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
And going into that, if have you, ever faced any tech layoffs, or, just ready to start your solo career? Were you like ready to go off? What was the catalyst that made you realize, okay, I don't need to check off all of these things. I just have one, two, I'm ready to go. What was your, I'm ready to go moment?
So I have been building my business Flynanced technically since 2020, but I didn't really make any money from my business really until last year in 2022. So in 2022, I was working a full-time 9 to 5. I was moonlighting my business on the side. So I was working on evenings, weekends, holidays, before work, which was a lot, but it paid off. At the beginning of this year, I kind of felt like I definitely was starting to feel like my business was growing exponentially, to the point where maybe it did make sense for me to put all of my focus and capacity on it. But being perfectly honest, I was not in any rush to leave my 9 to 5. I had a cushy 9 to 5. I had a good salary, great benefits. Like, my work was pretty calm. But I was laid off on February 1st of this year. So that became the catalyst. I can't say that I was shocked when it happened. It was kind of, there were just things happening internally at my job that kind of, the writing was kind of on the wall. So I would
Yeah.
definitely say, as an entrepreneur, I was definitely focused, especially in Q4 of last year, thinking about, how can I make more money? How can I inject more revenue into my business? Because, what if something does happen to my job? And I'm glad that I did that. I'm glad I was proactive about that, because when I did get laid off, I didn't feel, I wasn't feeling overwhelmed or anxious about where my next paycheck was going to come, because I knew that my business was in a really good and healthy place in terms of just incoming cash flow. So that was kind of the catalyst. I would say I was pushed into full-time entrepreneurship. I would say even now, I'm still considering this a sabbatical. So I'm calling this my Rich Hot Girl sabbatical. I've not made a decision on whether I won't return to a 9 to 5. Like, I'm the 9 to 5 hottie. So I think that there are many great benefits to working a 9 to 5. But I think for right now, and especially through the summer, I'm just kind of taking my own time to, focus on scaling my business, operationalizing, different parts of my business that I haven't been able to focus on, and just having a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's very true. There's a saying that says that God laughs when you make plans, because you
Ugh,
never really know what's going to happen. And so
yes.
in this, I kind of see two things where, one, you weren't making money from what you were doing, but you had it on the back end. You were moonlighting. So you were taking the time to hone your craft. And I think for a lot of people who are listening, think that, okay, if I start this side hustle, if I start this thing, I have to start making money from the get go or I'm a failure. And that's not the case. Did you ever feel that way? Or what were some of the ways that you kind of motivated or directed yourself to say, like, hey, this is going to pay off in the long run, slow and steady is going to get there?
Ooh, yeah, that's a great question. I can't lie, it was frustrating, I would say, especially in 2021. 2021 was a very frustrating year for me, as a creator, because I was starting to see my community grow. Like, maybe that year I had like about like 20,000 followers. I might have grown to about like 50,000 followers on Instagram. So, I was still growing as a creator. But it was frustrating because I think at that time, I didn't really know what my zone of genius was as it related to finance, right? Like I could create great content that people wanted to consume. I would have really engaged, audience on my Instagram lives or when I did workshops, but that consistent revenue wasn't there in my business. Like I think in 2021, I only made top line like $20,000 over the whole year. And that was mostly through like brand collaborations. So it was frustrating. And one of the things that I did was I realized that, okay, well, my zone of genius is not figuring out all the nuts and bolts of my business, right? So I invested in a business coach, really just someone to help me figure out what is my customer journey? What is my messaging? What is my positioning? Who is my target audience? Some of those things, were the first time I'd ever thought about those things, right? I don't come from a background in marketing and sales.
Yeah.
So it was helpful to have an expert kind of walk me through that. And, even as we worked together early on, I didn't immediately see the return on investment, right? Like there was still some things that I feel like I needed to work through. But then I would also say that when I really started to make money from finance, it required me to evolve what I thought I would be showing up and selling as, right? So, I mean, before 2022, I never used the term 9 to 5 hottie. I never talked about career. But it wasn't until I just made a piece of content talking about my salary journey and it completely blew up. Like every time I would talk about like what I do for work, how much money I made as a product manager, just talking about product management, it would go viral. And I was just like, oh, this is what people want to see from me. And again, before I ever even made money, I was just like, oh, well, let me think of a way that I can just continue to capitalize on this from just like building an audience perspective. So I made a free guide. And I was just like, okay, well, folks can give me their email and they'll get this free guide. I'm just going to lay out, just basic information that I, again, sometimes would take for granted in terms of helping what helped me in my career that I could pass along to other people with other resources. And in 1 month, 10,000 people had downloaded that free guide.
That's a lot of leads.
That's a lot of leads. And I think from that, right, that gave me enough data points to say, oh, this is more aligned with what people need. This is what my market fit is, right? So back to what you said earlier about it's a process in terms of going from, having an idea and actually making money from your ideas. Sometimes that initial idea that you have may not be the one that, the market wants from you, right? Like here I was talking on finance. I was talking about travel hacking. I was talking about all of these things that are related to travel and people got a lot of great value for it. I had made a little course in 2020 that I sold that I might've made over the lifetime of that course, maybe $10,000 from. But then, here, fast forward to 2022, where I'm really moving with the market. I'm letting my audience and community tell me what they need from me. I mean, the money, the opportunities just started to really flow with ease. So, I will definitely say I've had some frustrating moments, but I think it really required me to kind of think about, all right, like it required me to take a step back and really think about, am I investing in the right tools? And am I actually creating a solution for problems that I can help people face?
But can I just also ask,
Yeah.
because when you're doing all of this, how do you find, and I would like your honest answer, and I know there's no perfect answer, but from your experience, how do you find the balance between risk taking and stability with growing your business? And I would say when you were doing your 9 to 5 and moonlighting, and then when you fully went into entrepreneurship of Flynanced, how did you balance risk taking? How did you balance the things that you have to do right now? Because life happens, life keeps going on, even if you have a great idea, even if you're executing.
Yeah. I would say in 2022, I felt like I could take a lot of risk in my business because I had this really comfortable and cushy 9 to 5 job, right? So, even though I made 6 figures in my business in 2022, I was, I think that was possible because I was able to really push myself to say, I'm just going to create different offers, different products. I'm going to show up as much as I can because I know that I don't have to rely on the money that I'm making through finance. I am just trying to, right, putting my product manager hat on. I'm just trying to get as much stuff into the market so that I can really see, one, is this helping people, is it helping people make the transformations I think that I can help people make? are people buying? Are people paying attention? Do people care, right? Like, am I able to break through the noise, right? Are people going to come back and buy more things, right? So I might put out one offer and to see people, buy that, but then also want to continue to work with me. Those are good data points for me, right? I had no data on what people wanted from me. So 2020 required me to take a lot of risks in my business, but I think it was possible because I wasn't, putting so much pressure on myself to make money or to, figure out an exit plan. Fast forward to when I'm laid off in 2023, I feel like all of the work that I had done in 2022 had built just like a huge momentum for me, right? To the point where I'm not necessarily I'm not thinking about cash flow coming into my business as much because I'm making revenue more evergreen, right? I have like a consistent influx of brands that want to work with me and they're paying what I want to be paid for my work. In addition, right now, because I've spent all this time in 2022 creating these different offers, right? I have something that I can funnel people to, right? So no longer are the days where I'm just funneling people to my free value, which I continue to give, through social media, through my newsletter and other places. But now I actually have products that I can offer people when they're looking for more support on the topics that I talk about. So fast forward into my layoff moment, I felt like I had enough momentum in my business that I could take that risk to say, yeah, I can focus my energy on finance. I knew I had, X amount of dollars coming in. I knew there were other opportunities that I could still take advantage of. So I really kind of saw it as an opportunity that would free up my capacity. If I'm just like, wow, if I was able to do all of this in 2022 with, let's be honest, how many hours a week could I really put into my business? Maybe 20 hours a week, maybe. But a good 20 to 25 hours a week into my business. I do have fractional help. I have folks that help me with things. I was kind of just thinking, all right, well, if I can increase my output, like that has to mean more money into my business. So I kind of saw it that way.
Nice. And I would say also, what's one of the biggest misconceptions that you notice when most people are like introduced to your products or introduced to you or they talk to you? What's one of the biggest misconceptions that they have about finance and, or being a 9 to 5 hottie, or when it comes to all, money and all of that combined?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception that I push against in my services and my offers and my content is really just helping people see, and especially women of color, helping them see that our skills are worth so much more than we give ourselves credit for. And I think a lot of times we have been brainwashed this idea. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but we've been brainwashed this idea that, education is the ultimate thing that's going to free us all and create financial freedom for all of us.
Yeah. As a Caribbean child to a Caribbean mom, education is like life or death. So
Yes.
I get that.
And that's not to say that I don't agree in higher education, right? I myself have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. But I think many of us get stuck in this space, whether we have a college degree or a high school degree, and feeling like if we don't have those advanced degrees, we can't make the money that we want to make. So I try to kind of just inject more hope and options for people that I kind of feel like they're stuck in that space. I think that's the biggest misconception is that, oh, I got to get an MBA. I got to get a master's if I want to make six figures, if I want to make the money that I want to make. And the reality is, right, that that's just not, I won't say that's not always the case because again, depending on your lane, that might be the case.
Yeah.
But I think for many of us, if we really kind of thought about the skills that we had and really led with those and maybe upskilled if we needed to, we could open up so many other career paths that might be available to us rather than potentially putting ourselves into more debt
Yeah.
just for the potential of making more money. So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions I'm kind of pushing against right now. And I think also another big misconception, and I think why people really continue to be drawn to finance is I'm really just pushing against this narrative that having a 9 to 5 is not a way to build wealth, right? That only entrepreneurs can build wealth, that if you're working a 9 to 5, you'll be a slave to the man. Many of us, there are many people who are next door millionaires from their 9 to 5s through the, options they were able to use in their 9 to 5 and the investment accounts they were able to create through their 9 to 5
portfolio.
Exactly. Right. So I'm also pushing against that narrative that, having a 9 to 5 can be a strategic way to build wealth. It can be a strategic way to, build up enough capital to invest in other assets, right? It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive.
That is very true. Yeah, 100%. I also think, so let me address 2 points. One, I also think a lot of people in our generation, like put together, is that we were taught in an education system that wasn't yet prepared or exposed to all the advances that we have now.
Yeah.
There's so many professions and so many jobs that don't have names, and they don't exist yet because there's so much to explore. And I also feel like women, I can't speak for men, women especially feel like after they hit a certain age, they feel like they're stuck in a 9 to 5 or that they can't upgrade that skill set. So having that mindset of, completely like restructuring that narrative is such a big thing.
Yeah.
Um, one of the, wrapping up, one of my last questions that I want to ask you is, what's the best and worst advice you've ever gotten in your entire life, professionally or personally?
Yeah. I'll say professionally, I think some of the worst advice that I got, I remember back in 2020 when I was really thinking about growing my career, and I was at a place where I was making good money at American Express, but I kind of wanted more. And I remember getting advice from, a mentor, someone that was kind of high up in Amex, kind of telling me that, it's dumb to chase money, right? That like, essentially they were trying to make it seem like, oh, the grass is not always greener on the other side.
Mhm.
Are you sure that you want to chase, the almighty dollar when you have so many great relationships and opportunities here? And I say that that was the worst advice that someone could have given me at that point, because I think that person meant well. I think they had good intentions, but I don't think that they really just kind of understood where I was financially and how much, working towards more financial stability was ultimately what I needed. That was what was most important to me. So that's why I think that was kind
Yeah.
of the worst
I
advice.
was about to say that sounds like somebody who's used to having a lot of money for a very, very long time in their life, which
Yes,
isn't the case for most people.
exactly. Yes, yes. No, I got to be honest. I definitely worked in some 9 to 5 cultures where there were a lot of people of privilege, right? So these conversations just didn't matter to those people, because at the end of the day, they had a silver spoon that they could rely on. Anyway,
Yeah.
but I would say professionally, some of the best advice that I, have gotten has really just been about how to kind of continue to show up authentically as myself in whatever room, I'm put in.
What does authenticity mean to you in a sense? Because it means so many different things. It's
Yeah,
thrown around, but what does it mean specifically to you as the entrepreneur, as the person that you are, because you are more than an entrepreneur,
yeah.
um, as a financial expert?
I think authenticity to me means showing up, with the good and the bad and the indifferent, right? Like I think being authentic means not being afraid to show off the flaws, the differences that we all bring, right? So I think about myself as someone being a curvy young Black woman who's worked in corporate America. I've worn the long nails, I've worn the locks, I've worn the weaves, right? So even just how I choose to express myself in terms of beauty, in terms of fashion, that's one way that I've shown up authentically for myself, even when, as we know, because there's studies that have been done on this, there was an overwhelming, kind of pressure to conform in terms of how I looked and how I showed up in those spaces. And then I think even taking it a step further, as I started to build more skills and build more of a professional brand in these spaces, not being afraid to speak up for, the voices that aren't in those rooms, right? I think we need more of that. And I think if I hadn't had those experiences in my 9 to 5, I probably would have never had the courage and confidence to then create on social media, right? Because to any creators out there, how challenging it can be to put your ideas out there, to have people potentially troll you, to have people,
100%.
like
And people have no chill when it comes to commenting because people
at
just
all,
they just go at you.
at all. Exposing yourself on social media, it can come with a lot of pluses, but you have to be prepared for also, the potential for people to just kind of misunderstand you and your story. So I think I have to take that in stride too. I've been dragged on Twitter a couple times, But I think that adds to my
Yeah.
authenticity story, right? I'm not here to sugarcoat. I'm not here
Yeah.
to, I'm here to tell the story that makes sense for
Yeah.
me. I'm
And
here
if
to
you were
share.
only getting good comments and no negative comments, that would also be a cause for concern because you're actually making people think. You're actually evoking a certain emotion, whether that person's right or wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be kind of like my reflections on good and bad advice I've received over the years.
Okay, I love it. Thank
Yes.
you so much for taking the time to just be on the series with us. Where can our viewers find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at Flynanced across all platforms. On Instagram, I'm at fly.nance. That's FLY.NANCED. Hit me up on LinkedIn. My first name, last name, Cinneah El-Amin. And you can also check out my website, flynanced.com.
Nice. Okay. Thank you so much, Cinneah.
Thank you.
And guys, check it out if you are a 9 to 5 person or you're trying to move from one space to the next. Definitely have some great advice on there and a really great community, as I said in the opening. All right. So thank you guys so much. And we'll see you guys on the next episode of By Accident or Design.